Hey, how's it going out there, guys? Hope things are doing really well with you. Everything is going really well here in Tokyo, Japan. 4-day weekend, so it makes things a little bit easier just to chill for a little bit, shoot some content, maybe get a little bit ahead of the channel instead of doing day to day, trying to cram in a video, get that video done in time for the drop at 7 p.m. Have I got a video? Oh my god, I forgot about the thumbnail. So we don't have to worry about doing that if we've got a little bit of stock in advance, and it makes things a bit more relaxed and makes me a bit more happy. So hopefully things with you are good. Things are good with me as we sort of get into a few days of content and hopefully get the channel maybe semi back on track, because things have been a bit sort of turbulent. Let's go with turbulent over the last few maybe weeks. And to do that, we get to look at one of my favorite shoes, which is the Nike LeBron 17. But this video is about the Nike LeBron 18, but the thing is, the 17, as you know, if you've watched my channel regularly, you'll know I must have looked at about, I'm going to say 15 Nike LeBron 17s over the course of having this channel. We're talking 650 consecutive days of content on YouTube without a single day missed. And in that, I must have looked at maybe 15 Nike LeBron 17s, and actually with lows as well as highs. I didn't think about the lows when I was shooting this video, because the highs are what get most of my attention. And speaking of which, here's the Harlem Fashion Rose. To me, that was my favorite of the 17s. I just thought that was a really sleek shoe, and I think the 17s themselves were A, sleek, and B, an absolute revolution as far as shoes were concerned. It doesn't fit in with the trajectory of where the LeBron line was going. It's an absolutely unique shoe that stands on its own, and that's one of the things that actually disappoints me about the 18s. For me, the 17s are such a peak, it's almost impossible for the 18s to follow suit, and so maybe I'm hypercritical because I'm so invested in the 17s that it's like, you know, the 18s don't stand a chance. But for me, when I look at this and look at this silhouette here, this is going to be one of the first. I think there's 4 that they're rolling out round about the same time. This one aimed for October the 8th, which should be ahead of the finals for the NBA, but they're talking about rolling out 4, and the first thing that I thought about when I looked at the 18s was it was a step back to the 16s. Now the 16s were a semi kind of like half and half shoe. You had that sort of heel section usually in one material and one design, and then the 4 section that was in a different material and a different design. And then when I look at this, it comes back to that. And if we flip back to those Harlem Fashion Rows, you can see what a sleek and single unit effect they've got with the LeBron 17s. So it's, for me, the 18s, that 2 half part there is like, However, I do know there's a ton of technology behind that, and actually I think I researched this, but I never actually ended up making the video about the technology that went into the 18s and having that 2 half effect, so that you've got the power element where you push off and get as much sort of we'll go for vertical movement, and when you want to shoot hoops and get up high, and even for defense as well, I suppose, for blocking, but then in the forefoot, you know, you've got a lot more of spring and air unit that's to do with kind of lateral movement, and a bit more about being able to be more versatile on the basketball court. So I know it's technology based, but as far as design goes, the 17s are still way higher than anything else for me. But anyway, what we're here to do today is get a look at the James gangs. No, not these. They're the LeBron 17 James gangs. But I did look at that last year, and so it's kind of cool to have that as a basis from which we get into today's video and take a close-up look at what is under the microscope today, and that is the Nike LeBron 18 James gang. This is the Tokyo Butter 23 Sneaker Channel. Tokyo Butter 23 Sneaker Channel です。毎日アップするので毎日見てください。And every single day from Tokyo, Japan, I bring you content about upcoming sneaker releases, sneaker news, and sneaker reviews. And today, what's under the spotlight is the Nike LeBron 18 James gang. And there was some talk about this being like the multicolor versus the James gang, but I don't really get where they're coming from with that. We'll get into that into today's video, because there are a couple of places on it where it literally says James gang. So I don't know why people were confused. But anyway, like I said, we want to throw back to the 17s and have a look at the James gang from last year, and then get into these 18s. So looking at that 17 from last year, 2 things strike me about it, and they're the inverse of the 18s, and I kind of like that. I like that what was the focus on the 17s is now not, and then what wasn't the focus on the 17s now is. So I kind of like it when they've done that. I think that it provides a sort of continuity for the James gang sneaker through the different phases of the LeBron line. So in the case of the 17s last year, the 2 main main things that I want to look at is the fact that the upper has an awful lot of color. It does fade from color towards the back towards black at the front, but basically that upper on there is very colorful. But then on the outsole, it's not. The outsole was, if I remember right, I think it might have been translucent icy blue, but it definitely wasn't colorful. And the reason why we're doing that today, why I want to draw that attention to the 17, is because of things like this. Bang, there's a LeBron 18 James Gang outsole, and it definitely is colorful. It's extremely colorful. There's a sort of trend in basketball sneakers right now where they sometimes have solid color blocking on the outsole, but at other times they go for some really wild color blocking. So I'm thinking about like Kyrie 6s, I'm thinking about KD 13s, I think PG 4s as well might also have some wild variations on the outsole going on there. The Why Not 3.0s, I think as well, they also have some pretty cool outsoles going on. And then like today with these LeBron 18s, you can see there's a whole lot of color splashed in a lot of different ways. So instead of having these segments of color, blue segment here, red segment there, yellow segment there, it's actually a sort of collage of colors all throughout the outsole, and it's very, very cool. And like I say, on the 17s last year, that was much more muted. It wasn't, that's not where the color went. Quick flick back to the 17s, like I said, about the upper being the focus of the color on that shoe. And then when we come to today's shoe, you can see it's much less. So there are a couple of details as far as the color is concerned, and we'll get into the heel in a minute. But before that, we want to zoom in on the fabric, and you can see that kind of knitted wool, fly wire, whatever you want to call that material effect. Not only is it basically black front to back, it's also got some dots in there to give it a bit of definition in blue. So that gives it a bit more sort of color and a bit more spark to it. Now what I want to do is I want to go to the front of the shoe, and we'll work our way back. So at the front of the shoe, there's a couple of little details on the front, on the toe box that you can see there, where you've got some little swooshes on the, I think the right foot, I'm right in saying it's blue, and on the left foot it's pink. And that actually is going to be mimicked later on when we get to the heel. So remember that on the toe box there, you've got right foot blue swoosh, left foot pink swoosh, and I think I'm right in saying they're embroidered, they're stitched into the toe box of these guys. And then as we travel back and you get onto the lacing system, like I said, there's three actually visible air units. Sometimes these kind of air units are there to give you a bit more support on a tongue, are there to are hidden within the tongue, but in the case of these guys, they're very visible. You can see 1, 2, 3 of them there, and if I zoom in on, I think the middle one of them, you can see that James Gang motif going on in there. So I don't know how people were confused about whether these were James Gangs or not. I don't know, because it says it literally right in the middle of the tongue there. Going back up a little bit further from that to the top of the tongues were kind of very simple looking to me. It reminded me of Jordan 6s with that very sort of hard, solid tongue that they have, and they look very solid on this. Now I don't know if that's a feature of the James Gangs or if that's the standard feature of the LeBron 18s, but it'll be something to keep an eye on and look out for, is whether or not the tongue at the top especially has that solid effect that we see here on all of them, or if that's just distinctive to the James Gangs. And then traveling back from that, we'll go right around to the heel and look in there, because there's three things that I want to talk about on the heel. One is it's got that shell, that heel cup, that heel counter, whatever you're going to call that unit on there, that's in a semi-translucent white, making it a bit more difficult to see through it, to the second feature of the heels, which is that very colourful, very sort of graffiti-esque imagery that's going on there, and that semi-translucent white heel cup that wraps around it, making it a bit more difficult to see. But if you do look as hard as you possibly can, I think you can also see again that James Gang moniker wrapped up in the heel there. So it gives it's a couple of little details that make it very unique, you know, that wrap around and semi-translucent, and then that graffiti effect underneath that semi-translucent. And I could show you this on the medial side, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna show you on the heels, which is incomplete, but it does give you that idea of the definition between the two. And what I'm zooming in on is what I'm zooming in on is the swooshes on the medial side, and it's interesting that the swooshes are on the medial side. Generally the branding would be on the lateral side of a shoe, but it's tucked on the inside. And then the second thing is that it matches that moniker from the front of the shoe, where you've got one in pink and one in blue. So it's easy to see that contrast between the two swooshes as far as color goes, but as far as the construction of it goes, it's easier to look at one of them. So we'll pop up one here, and you can see that it's got a much solider, much more solid effect than the toe box ones, which were embroidered on there, and that's especially obvious when you look at the square patterning that comes within those swooshes on there. So it's a pretty cool final detail to finish off these shoes. So from that, we'll pan it back out a little bit, come round to the lateral side, and I'll challenge you to read this. It took me a while to work out what this said here, because white on white isn't the easiest thing to do. So it took me a bit, and especially with it being cursive, you know, it's a bit harder to read. But what it says on there is from the city of Akron, Oklahoma, and if I've got that wrong, tell me in the comments, feel free. But Akron is LeBron James's hometown, so putting that right on there. He always, you know, he represents his hometown. I think he even has a school in his hometown that's a project of his. So Akron, Oklahoma, it says right there, from the city of Akron, Oklahoma. So so pulling back out now at looking at the whole shoe, a final look at this 18. Like I said, there was no way it was ever going to beat the 17s for me, because I think that is going to be an iconic shoe that people talk about for years to come. But it's still very cool. It's still a nice looking shoe. It's great to see that James Gang moniker brought through, and that makes me wonder if we'll also see throughout this year things like Fruity Pebbles and Watch the Throne and stuff like that. So so things to look forward to with the Nike LeBron 18s. Hopefully you enjoy this shoe. Maybe this is the kind of shoe that's going to bring the King back into the limelight as he aims to win his third different franchise championships. I'm pretty sure he won with Miami, he won with Oakland, and now be looking to win with Los Angeles as well, which would be a pretty big feat. Actually, I've never looked into this. I wonder if anyone's ever won with 3 different franchises. I'm sure people have done it with 2. Don't know about 3, but maybe you do, and you can tell me in the comments down below. For now though, time for me to sign off. Thank you guys for checking out the content, and I'll do what I do at the end of every single video, like every single one, every single day, is tell you that I do this every single day, and that means that you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.